The issue with the DPP's office, of course, we saw when it played out in the press, we saw the back and forth, and it was interesting in that the DPP himself, he more or less, he just said what he had to say, but he didn't necessarily engage when it started to become a personal argument. He was being argued with, but he didn't necessarily respond until he went back to the JSC, the Joint Select Committee on National Security, Karen, and he was asked questions and he continued to answer them. One of which was, he said, well, look, I didn't want to necessarily engage in these things. I'm not into the bacchanal. But he was asked about it. He was asked about not moving in to the offices that were secured by cabinet. He was asked also with regards to why he did not, because he supposedly has the authority to hire people on contract, why it was that he was not able to do so. And he had answers for those things, which I think are reasonable.
Yeah, I think the DPP was being very strategic because he recognized it made none of them look good. And he's a part of our very central to our whole criminal justice system. You know, when we talk about the criminal justice system, one has to remember matters do not get to the point of being prosecuted in the courts until the police bring the evidence and prosecutable evidence, evidence that can stand up in a court of law, and we have the legislation, because crime is a creature of statute. In other words, you have to find a section so-and-so in some act on which you could use that evidence to charge the person. So it starts early from, of course, what we were just talking about, the transnational corporations, which, by the way, I told Sean off screen that one of the reasons why they moved to the Caribbean was because the Americans were so successful in interdiction, because initially it was through Central America, and they were getting so much difficulty that they moved their operations to the Caribbean. So it means they can do it. So, but coming back to the DPP, his role is, he doesn't, his role comes in when he has to make a determination if the person has a prosecutable crime, and then he has to prosecute. For years, I know he mentioned in particular 2013 when a cabinet note recommended 137 staff for prosecutors. But before that, it was 128 on the books, and he had been asking for several years for more staff. So when the Chief Justice made this statement, I myself was taken aback, because he says that the Judicial Legal Service Commission, yes, we do with hiring on a permanent basis, but the DPP has the authority to hire on contract. So I did say to myself, well, if you have an opportunity to hire a prosecutor, why aren't you doing it? I mean, is it not a solution and you're not using it? So I took the newspapers, because I don't want to misquote what he said. He said that, first of all, he made it clear the AG has no place in the executive decision-making of the DPP, and that's any legislation on our constitution. He says that there's confusion as to whether the DPP can hire contract staff, as the DPP disclosed that he wrote inquiring about this, given that the DPP's office is not functioning the way that it should. He said the staff comes to the office via state attorneys appointed by the Judicial Legal Service Commission, headed by the Chief Justice and by contract. Gaspard says 6 weeks ago he asked his deputy DPP to inquire from the permanent secretary as to whether or not the DPP could recruit staff. The PS, he said, responded that he could not recruit staff, notwithstanding that he's deemed to be a chief legal officer, which is different from a chief financial officer. He added that historically, no DPP has recruited staff and has been asked to recruit staff. The DPP disclosed that he then received communication from the AG saying he added, and this is a quote, "Lo and behold, only Monday gone, last Monday, the Honorable Attorney General would have written to me saying that you can recruit staff since you are chief legal officer. You have to liaise with my PS." Gaspard said to equate the DPP as a chief legal officer with a PS, in my respectful view, is a misplaced equation, since the PS has control over certain budgetary and financial resources, which no DPP has. The DPP said its office has a staff of 58 and requires 137 to be officially run, the number requested since 2013, 137. So it's clear to me that he could not or did not believe that, and had never done, hiring contract staff. So that was the answer to that question, which made me say, but why wasn't he doing it? And he gave the answer. And he hasn't got his own budget. So anything that he needs to have done, he has to depend on the AG. And that is why I think judiciary has their own budget now, central bank has their own budget. Because one way, I'm not saying this government is doing it, but one way people do, and government do control the department is to under-resource them. If you don't have the money and you don't have the thing, they don't even have an HR. She said, manager. Yeah, Deputy DPP says she acts as an HR manager. How could that possibly be right? So it's because they're not getting the right amount of funding yet.
I think people might not understand. It's one thing if it's your business and you act as your own HR.
Right.
But this is a big, important government office.
Crime.
You cannot have now, she wasn't hired for that. His skill set isn't with regards to that. You know, like who, you know,
so you
it's not
yourself,
proper for her to just
so you ask
assume
yourself, then why would you allow that to happen for so long?
It should not.
It should not. Why are you allowing that?
Exactly.
Why are you allowing? And he said 2013, but I know since 2009, because I went back in my notes, and he has been begging. He has been begging for staff. And yet, why won't they give him staff? And this answer that we got, well, we know now, well, that's, he apparently never knew he could hire any staff, and he's not given the funding, which I knew that had to be part of the problem. You want to control somebody, under-resource them. So they don't have. The next answer was in relation to the building. You know, the Prime Minister in his Monday meeting said, and imagine, we rented a place for the DPP, outfitted, etc., and paying $7 million a year. So I think it came up to $45 million. $45 million in the years. I don't know who the tenant landlord is. I'd be interested to find out who that landlord is, who's getting that money every year. But this is what he said. And he used that, the Joint Select Committee as a medium in which to say what he said, and that was, I think, was very smart on his part. During his contribution to the GSC panel yesterday, Gaspard also noted that the TTPS, Trinidad and Tobago Police Service Special Branch officials were not the only agents who deemed his proposed office as unsafe, and that he is currently awaiting the findings from another recent report to determine the next step as it relates to occupancy of the Park Street building. Last Friday, the AG, myself, and others, including the Special Branch, visited the building, and there were two-hour meeting, etc. He rated that other agencies had previously shared the security concerns he and his staff had raised. My reluctance to take my staff into the building was predicated on what experts said about the building, and something nobody wants to see in the public domain, but I will say it. Recommendations to show up the vulnerabilities of that building did not come first from the Special Branch. It came from the Ministry of National Security and the technocrats of the Ministry of the Attorney General, not Roger Gaspard, the DPP. I always said I do not have the expertise. I do not have the forte. And he referenced a meeting, a political meeting in Baratow where the Prime Minister Rowley said, he didn't reference it, but it was referenced in the article, said the government had spent $45 million leasing, renovating, and outfitting a building. So he is telling you that's why he's not going. And to give the impression, and you are not going to tell me, the head of the National Security Council, the Minister of National Security, you didn't know after they told you early on, that's not the place. If I went to rent a place, and the place is not fit for purpose, and am I going to waste government money and continue? Why are you continuing with it? And then trying to put the blame on him?
They're renting it for 3 years. Nobody could have asked the question earlier than now. Well, he's not in the building. We have 3 different groups of people saying that it is most likely not safe.
Experts.
Maybe we should, right, Ministry of National Security, the Attorney General, and Special Branch, right? Maybe we should stop renting this building.
Maybe.
Maybe. You know? No. It took 3 years and $45 million.
3 years or 5 years? Because it's $45 million, yeah? And
well, even if it was only 3 years, the point is...
It's $45 million, yeah? That's what the Prime Minister said.
The key is who's the head of the National Security Council.
Right, so, and you know what I found was very... And what I found was very unfair, that he went to this public meeting and he didn't know where to turn. So he had to put the blame on the DPP. How can you do something like that?
Well,
put the blame on the DPP.
Karen, we have to break. We have to break. However, just to follow up on that, and when he was called out on it, he said, well, I just talked about the building. I didn't say anything about DPP.
Right.
So, folks, we have to take a break. When we come back, News and Hours next. Afterwards, we open up the phone.